Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief to bring the RCMP in, forensic audits, and we're going to go after the organized crime. The Abbotsford APD Police Department got owned, and rather than uphold the justice system and put stuff before the courts and jury, it decided it was going to listen to Mr. Billionaire and cover up heinous acts. Henry's son, Braun, the Economic Development Officer, opened the door. Rather than Abbotsford residents and myself go into the Abbotsford police that Henry controlled, and then they could control evidence and threaten, it was a bounce. Abbotsford residents and myself went to the best, the Mission RCMP. Today, on the world stage, you could see what is unfolded. Henry Braun was after this city. The bigger the treasure is, the more security you need. A bigger police force for a bigger city to lift lands, job sites, romp, funk, and that. Let me begin you a small story and then I'll tell you what I'm here today. Henry took Ross Siemens and Abbotsford First, which was a slate of council, and won majority decisions and gave them special effort treatment and didn't let them do their city functions. When Henry got out of control, rather than it go before the city and be deflected, Nancy Friesen, the sitting city's mayor, secretary, decided that she was going to play big girl. Started doing things that flashed to the RCMP that a secretary ain't supposed to. When you phoned in and you wanted to bring stuff to the council and talk, she said, well, that don't fit the city and you're not going there. They knew that Henry, the train tycoon, when he came mayor, he didn't set this up. This had to be a long time in planning with his money and his resources to get these people to cross over. Slowly working for years and years till the big one came, till he could get in the city. When Henry Braun decided that he was going to cover an elite for his elite friends and establishment and use Ed and Mike to cover up organized crime within the city to gouge it, lifting lands and cause damage to the homeowners. It was the former Speaker of the House, Darryl Plunkett, that made sure, what the hell is Henry and them shit kickers of Abbotsford First doing? He knew when Henry had council in his house, they were now working together. He knew that. When the RCMP got on board, the Mission RCMP, they could help Abbotsford residents. Unbelievable. When they saw what Vicky Hopes and Ken and Tyler Olson were doing, they knew that Henry had his thumb on top of them. It was the RCMP that asked me to do this, run for mayor. Never in my wildest dreams would I thought of that. I thought we would have law enforcement. That way when I ran, they could see that Henry's play was to load and guard the city to get Ross Siemens in, and then had to block Mr. Pelican. A perfect plan that they had all figured out. The endorsement by the Chamber of Commerce, Greg Toes over all the candidates and everything else. Dave Sadu at UFB, Vicky Hope's blocking all advertising, the read the newspaper and everything. Offsetting to the RCMP's eyes of why Jake Siemens would come and see me, Ross's dad, after what I have put on social media because he knew his son fucked up, threatened people's lives. The Abbotsford men and women were not a police force to police Abbotsford. We're going to do a video on that. But what I'm here today, I want to help my BC Conservatives, and today I want to help David Eby. There is a leadership race for the BC Conservatives and quite a few candidates got their names in it. The way to get in and do that is you send back players to get over the board, like we saw Sir James Barlow doing it on Suk Mangel, and we stepped in, Abbotsford stepped in and stopped that. And we saw how Ed Fast was going to help Mike DeYoung. There's a candidate that Ed Fast is supporting for the leadership here. Ed Fast brought him into town and he's working on his candidate and he's running him. Ed Fast also was the one when a sitting MLA, now Rhiannon Gasper for the BC Conservatives, when she ran for council here with Alex Mitchell, she went to Ed. Let me tell you what Ed said to her. Women should not get involved in politics. They should go home and get in the kitchen. Abbotsford residents were outraged. They went behind Rhiannon Gasper and made her the MLA and showed Ed, your endorsement means nothing. Now this candidate that Ed's dealing with is running for the Conservative to be the premier, the leadership. has to look Rianne Gasper in the face and know that the guy that's running him, his campaign manager, did this. It's unacceptable. It calls for Ed's candidate now to decline the leadership and step down. So let me tell you what happened. The big team that controlled the institutions of Abbotsford could set up and rig it through the chambers and everything. They're worried about the RCMP seeing and everybody else. The other night they had a meeting. Mike DeYoung came in, there you go. Mike was there, and Henry Braun was there, Ed was there, and they brought their candidate in from Surrey. And here's what they were. So let me show you the play to my Conservatives and to my NDP and everybody. Let me show you the play. We know Henry Braun was behind Pam and is with David Eby at all times because you don't see them hauling each other in the ground. But here's what we're going to look for. Did Henry go to Pam and tell Pam, I'm going to penetrate the BC Conservatives, we're going to get in there and split the votes, and we're going to get Ed's guy to run, and then we're going to do that, and then that way David Eby, when he calls elections, will get a full mandate. So this will decide if it's true or not. Who was at that meeting? Was sitting City Councillor Simon Gibson. Now let me tell you about Simon Gibson. When the Holmes got knocked off the mountain, it was Gibson's riding. And Gibson was setting up a meeting with the Abbotsford homeowners. Mike leaned in and strong-armed Gibson. Gibson hid in his office when he was the BC Liberal MLA. And Mike was the one that took his finger and said, cut a deal. Henry owns Abbotsford rather than help homeowners. And Henry was threatening. Now the three rats went in the hole together. But Simon is a sitting MLA. And he is endorsing our sitting city council, former MLA of the BC Liberals. And he's helping Ed Fast with the leadership for the BC Conservatives. I believe his last name's Black, Ian Black. And he's helping him. Now Black is innocent to it, but he's got to decline now the leadership race knowing what took place here in Abbotsford. Because it looks like he got owned. Now why do I stand here for David Eby? When you're mayor or council, you're supposed to be neutral because you got to work with the elected officials to help you. This is what the Abbotsford Police couldn't do. This is why they stalked me and threatened me. So the reaction of David Eby would be to this. Gurpreet Rai is a good person of Abbotsford. He's an NDP person. Suki Dami, I made it all clear. These are good people for the NDP. It doesn't matter about Conservatives. But these back players got to be flushed. And that stops if Gurpreet Rai wants to run because they're loading. They're loading. They're going to use the chamber and everything else. But it also shows that the Premier, David Eby, has to bring resources and money into Abbotsford, knowing that Simon Gibson and Council and Ross and Henry and Mike DeYoung, the Liberal, are helping Ian Black to get on the Conservatives for the leadership of the Premier. And the Simon Gibson is not allowed to be involved with that because Eby then can say, now listen, Mr. Pelican's right here. Either I'm going to get caught that I sent Henry and these people through Pam to hack the Conservatives and make them weak, or I had nothing to do with it. To show I had nothing to do with it, I'm going to strict and ask for forensic audits on Barrowtown. I'm going to ask for everything because Eby should be outraged that the elected city council's officials are now trying to underseed him by going into Conservatives. So it would call for Ian Black to recant his position and step down and then go see his elected co-partner in the ledge, Rianne Gasper, and say, did Ed Fast do that when you were running for city council? And she's going to confirm what Abbotsford residents did. And this is why they stood up, because Abbotsford said every woman should have a voice too. And they stood up and helped her and worked their ass off to get her elected that. So I want to ask Simon Gibson. This is for Simon, Ross Siemens, the lawyer Mark Workentine, Kelly Shahal, all these smart people. And I bet you Colin Watts is going to laugh and giggle on this one. He's going to laugh. Simon Gibson went on the world stage when he wasn't getting what he was wanting for Mike DeYoung, his buddy, rather than running his office. When Mike couldn't get the leadership because Pierre Poilievre said it was going to suit Manguel because they were trying to load Mike to get backroom deals and scam, and they were blocking residents. Simon said that his buddy and pal, Mike DeYoung, owed an apology by the Conservative leaders to apologize why he didn't let Mike in the party. Abbotsford's mayor And Simon Gibson must stand before these flags and to David Eby and apologize why Simon Gibson went behind Ian Black because he couldn't say no to Henry, Ed, and Mike. And he must apologize to David Eby to open a fair, level playing ground in Abbotsford, so if Gurpreet Rai or any NDP put their name forward, it's going to be Ren and not by establishment. I told you, all of them have to come in the end. They'll panic and they're running everywhere and they'll screw it up. And Ed Fast, who got under Henry's thumb when the attempted murder came on my life, the threat and everything. And Simon Gibson went there crawling again because he was under Mike's thumb. So to the BC Conservatives, you need to get to headquarters, you need to address this, you need to show it to Ian Black, and you need to say, Henry Braun is also running this. Henry Braun deserves one thing in this community. He needs to go before our Supreme Court, and Abbotsford and me, myself, are working very, very hard to make sure that we get the best in Abbotsford to stop this shit. And Simon, I would appreciate it. That's why I'm here today on behalf of Abbotsford as Commander-in-Chief, saying to David Eby, Abbotsford extremely and humbly apologizes for the back garbage going behind the doors to load candidates and not allow voters and transparency and a proper democracy take place. Mr. Billionaire Henry Braun and his friends are working the grounds very hard. So they're either cahooted with David Eby, Pamela Alexa's team, or they're doing the opposite. The response, well, was when David Eby lights up a fire into Abbotsford, we'll know what happened. I'm live, Abbotsford, British Columbia, Simon Gibson.